the Harris Football Podcast with your host, Christopher Harris.
All right. Hey, let's do it. Hey, I am Chris Harris. This is the Harris Football Podcast. Ha ha ha. Most of week one is in the books. And if you're new to our podcast, or new to me, I think you'll find that this is where it starts getting good because I watch every single game on tape and report to you what I see. So here's how it's going to work this season for Mondays, since I have to get a show done in time to get it out. I'm going to watch half the games, then record this show, and then I'll watch the second half of the games and report on those on Tuesday's show. So I've literally just come from the film room. I've literally just watched a whole lot of tape. I'm bursting, and I'm going to tell you what I saw. First of all, what I saw was a lot of tight ends scoring touchdowns. What the heck? You can put aside Rob Gronkowski's 3 from last Thursday, Scott Chandler's 1. On Sunday alone, there were 18 touchdowns scored by tight ends. Tyler Eifert, Travis Kelce, Jason Witten, and Austin Seferian-Jenkins each scored twice. 10 other tight ends scored once. Is it a trend? Should we all go crazy and trade for every tight end in the world? No. Probably not.
Today's kickoff.
On today's show, a whole lot of film talk. I've watched Giants-Cowboys, Ravens-Broncos, Colts-Bills, Packers-Bears, Texans-Chiefs, Lions-Chargers, Saints-Cardinals. So those are the games for today. I'll tell you what I saw. We'll have a very quick mailbag, and then the fantasy footballers will be on to talk about their impressions of week one, specifically with those guys. I'm going to ask them about Lions-Chargers, and in particular Saints-Cardinals, since those guys are actually in Arizona, and they're all Cardinals fans. We'll see how hard they're pressing the panic button on Andre Ellington. We have a new sponsor on board today, Stamps.com. On Sunday before kickoff, I had a live video Q&A. Some of you may have seen me. And during that session, I asked a couple trivia questions, and the winners won a little bit of swag. Guess how I'm going to send that swag? Stamps.com. I'm actually done going to the post office. Takes too long. I'm pretty busy with the little podcast that could. With Stamps.com, I can literally do anything I do at the post office right from my desk. I buy and print official U.S. postage for any letter or package using my own computer and printer. Unlike the post office, Stamps.com never closes, so if I have to get that swag out at midnight, I can print postage whenever I need it, 24/7. Right now, if you use my offer code, Harris, you get a 4-week trial plus a bonus offer that includes a free digital scale and up to $55 in free postage. So don't wait. Go to Stamps.com. And before you do anything else, click on the microphone at the top of the homepage and type Harris. That's Stamps.com. Enter Harris.
Injury news.
I'm not going to hit every single injury just yet. Mostly because it's Monday morning. We don't know the result of every single injury, but I'll certainly start with the big one. Des Bryant broke a bone in his foot on Sunday night. He's going to need surgery. Supposedly he's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks. Not good. Let's talk Giants-Cowboys for a minute. And I probably don't need to go into massive detail here because it was a national TV game. Many of you probably watched it, but I went back and watched the tape. I especially focused on the Cowboys running back situation since it's been the subject of so much speculation. Joseph Randle, certainly the starter. In traditional running back terms, he played 28 snaps. Darren McFadden played 10. But Lance Dunbar played 32 snaps, often lining up as a receiver. Randall's defenders are going to say, yeah, well, the Cowboys were losing. That's why Dunbar was in there. So, yeah. Are the Cowboys never going to be trailing again all year? I think what this teaches us is that, for the moment, at least the way these guys were used in week one, this is a game flow dependent situation with no pure starter. All right, so what did I actually see from them running? Okay, I'll admit, watching it live, I was kind of disappointed with Randall, but reviewing the tape, it was probably better than I was giving him credit for. I do think he left yards on the field. I didn't see a ton of decisive cuts, and I don't think he has great acceleration. he showed long speed on that impressive one-handed catch he made on the sidelines. That was really good. Probably all I saw in terms of impressive speed. I saw a few runs, though, where, maybe a cutback would have gotten him a bigger gain, but he did power the pile. He showed good strength, and I think that was a question for him. It was a so-so performance. It was okay. McFadden has no patience at all as a runner. Everything is a million miles an hour. He doesn't set up blocks. But I'll admit, I see a difference when he's the one carrying it. Boom, he does have real acceleration, and I can envision big plays coming, even if he stays with this limited workload. Dunbar didn't have a single carry, did have 8 catches for 70 yards in the Vereen role, which is easy to dismiss, but if the Cowboys are down, seems like that's what you'll see. The upshot here is that, for the moment, Randall looks like he's ahead, but I don't think he did anything to, put everyone else in the rear view. I still think it's, for instance, worth hanging on to Kristen Michael to see what happens. So, my first weekend at DraftKings.com is still going. I need Sam Bradford to play well tonight. Did you play DraftKings in week 1? It's really fun. I recommend it. I don't own Jarvis Landry or Chris Ivory in any of my regular leagues, but I got a piece of them this week in a 50-50 contest, and it looks like they'll wind up saving me as long as Bradford plays pretty well. I'll double up my money. And that's the fun of DraftKings. There are no season-long commitments, and you can own anyone if you love their matchup that week. I like the 50-50s. As long as you finish in the top half of the contest, you double your entry fee. In my case, that tends to be like $20 or something because I'm not really a big-time gambler. Of course, if you want to take a shot at the big money, DraftKings does crown a new millionaire every week, which is pretty amazing if you think about it. Anyway, play fantasy football on demand like I do at DraftKings.com, and when you use my promo code Harris, you'll get a free entry to try it out. That's DraftKings.com, promo code Harris. So, Dez is out for at least a month, and if Terrence Williams is available in your league, you can grab him. Williams, not an analog for Bryant, but he should see his targets go up, as should Jason Witten, who probably climbs to the level of a top 5 or 6 tight end while Bryant is out. As for the Giants' backfield, it was nice to see Rashad Jennings not get vultured in the fourth quarter when the Giants were on the 1. Boom, Jennings was in there and converted. And then, actually on the game's key series, when the Giants basically should have kicked a field goal, he was also out there close to the Cowboys' end zone. The overriding impression I had of the passing game in this particular game, there's patient and there's too patient. Both defenses, played a lot of too deep zone for a lot of the night, and the quarterbacks were too patient, both of them. Geez, guys, it's not like nobody ever throws beyond 5 yards against a cover 2, but the downfield attempts really were rare, which limited Odell Beckham. It limited Dez when he was in there. Not a lot of excitement, almost all checkdowns and dinks and dunks, which is disappointing against these two secondaries, which I'm going to go ahead and continue to think aren't really all that good. So let's move on to Ravens-Broncos. I think the big controversy here is going to be about Peyton's arm. You're going to hear everyone talking about how Peyton's done. It's over for him. Watching this tape, I'd say I'm not there yet. I think the big issue for Denver in this game was the offensive line. Take the pick 6 that Manning threw. Kyle Arrington just crushed him and made him throw early and without stepping into the throw. I don't think it was arm strength. It was much more about pressure. The way the Ravens stunted on that defensive line just devastated the offensive line. Manning was really under pressure up the middle the entire game. I'm not excusing Peyton Manning. The reason the Ravens could put so much pressure was that they really were kind of daring him to beat them down the field. And that's not a tactic you've typically used against Peyton Manning in the past. And he did miss some throws that would have punished Baltimore, but they were overthrows, not really underthrows. I'm just saying I don't think we can come to any decisive conclusions here. We can't say he's done, arm is gone. But Thursday night the Chiefs are going to do the same thing, throw everyone in the box and make Manning prove he's still Manning. let's face it, though, it looked like there are real problems with that Denver line. C.J. Anderson, 29 yards on 12 carries, had nowhere to go. It's not like he forgot how to run. Ronnie Hillman actually looked better late in the game, but I'd say, small sample size. That was a line that was getting pushed around and not opening a lot of holes. Okay, so Demaryius Thomas had a hand injury apparently, and I'm not giving up on him, but yeah, the Broncos have to prove they can get back to their well-oiled machine days. It wasn't any better for the Ravens offense. Justin Forsett was a trash bag for 1 week, for sure. I mentioned during Sunday's live chat that Forsett had the highest average yards before contact in the NFL last year, but not yesterday. Again, I don't want to draw conclusions and say, oh, he's lost his talent, but, it's particularly important for Forsett to be given room by his line because he's so small, and he's not going to make a lot of things happen on his own. I thought Buck Allen outplayed Forsett in the third quarter, though, of course, I say that, and then when the Ravens line finally gave him a nice seam, he tackled himself. Steve Smith. Oi. Potential game-winning touchdown bounces off his face mask. This was a really ugly offensive game. We're talking two offenses with something to prove in the passing game to keep defenses honest, because we saw a lot of stacked boxes. And in particular, in the case of the teams facing the Broncos, that's the exact opposite of what we've typically seen, where they've been so paranoid they felt like they needed to keep 5 or 6 guys in the box. That was certainly not the case on Sunday.
Film Room Surprise.
Who took the first snap at quarterback for the Bills this year? Wrong. It was Matt Castle in some stupid option play that didn't work. But no, the real surprise here is Tyrod Taylor, also known as T-Mobile, as he carried over the preseason and was pretty good as a thrower. I say pretty good, and that's fair, I think. He hit a lovely long touchdown pass to Percy Harvin, dropped it in the bucket, and otherwise he was mostly asked to dink and dunk, which, listen, he did it accurately and effectively, which is a lot more than you can say for a lot of NFL quarterbacks. Of course, for fantasy, we're interested in him as a runner, too. He didn't do a ton of it on Sunday. There was one called run that I saw for him in the first half. It was a 3rd and long where he ran around the end. But in the final drive of the half, he did start scrambling more as an improviser. And as an improviser, he is pretty great. He had a 31-yard run that was absolutely beautiful up the right sideline. Defenses are going to notice that basically Taylor looks at his first read, and if he's not there, he ducks his head and he starts looking for the exits. He starts jittering around the pocket. Doesn't necessarily mean he never looks to his second read, because he does, but after he doesn't see that first read open, you definitely see him lower his head and start to scramble around. I think a good defense, maybe starting in week 2 against the Patriots, can potentially take advantage of that. Shady McCoy, frustrating a little bit. Had a touchdown taken away by a holding penalty, got vultured by Anthony Dixon on the goal line. Plus, Carlos Williams had an improbable touchdown run himself when it seemed like he was totally bottled up. But, what's great about McCoy in this offense is that they want to hit him in space too, so he'll regularly get dump-offs and design screens. He was very good on them on Sunday. Still feel really good about him if he stays healthy. I think the floor week to week is very high. Frustrating day for Sammy Watkins. He was, in fact, basically shadowed by Vontae Davis whenever he lined up on the outside. Only saw 3 targets, 0 catches. One of those targets probably should have been a touchdown in the fourth quarter, but Taylor overthrew him. Things are going to be better. He's still the Bills receiver you want to own, despite Harvin scoring a touchdown. But the combo of him and Taylor obviously isn't ready to produce huge numbers, no matter the matchup. Looking at the Colts, the Andre Johnson did not have a good day. He's not getting open down the field. He dropped a 2-point conversion. That was a bad drop. He pretty much had scheme completions, when he was wide open because of defensive scheme. But Dante Moncrief, looked like a younger, faster version of Andre Johnson. Now, I think if you're a listener of this show, I was a little down on AJ to begin the year as far as draft value went. So, I don't want to have confirmation bias here. But this, I think, by any measure, was a poor performance. So, Johnson needs to be on the lookout. He's not doomed, but wasn't a good debut. Frank Gore, that's a difficult task. That Bills defense is as good as advertised. It's really, really good. It's a ton of pressure up the middle. I think it all starts up the middle, Darius and Williams. And it's just tough to get anything going on the ground against him. I'm not loving him losing a goal line series to Josh Robinson, but I'm basically willing to give Gore a mulligan. Philip Dorsett wasn't really a factor till the game was basically over, but with T.Y. Hilton suffering what was called by the Colts a bruised knee, he's likely to miss at least week 2 against the Jets. Dorsett is going to be a deep league ad. And, of course, I'll talk waiver wire more formally on Tuesday's show. Andrew Luck overthrew Hilton a couple times on deep balls that should have been touchdowns. But if and when Hilton gets healthy, that's not going to continue to be a problem.
Counterintuitive opinion of the day.
Yeah, my counterintuitive opinion of the past couple of weeks was James Jones, and going to talk Packers-Bears next, also known as the Panic of James Jones. You'll recall that I spent a lot of the past couple of weeks saying that I thought Jones was more of a threat to Devontae Adams than he really was to the number 3 receivers, Ty Montgomery and Jeff Janis. And I would say that the worst-case scenario did happen for Adams owners. Jones made basically 4 insanely great catches, though one of them was a touchdown that was called back by a penalty. Adams got an end zone look from Aaron Rodgers himself, but didn't show great chemistry with him and didn't catch it. Now look, Adams basically played every snap and Jones didn't, and Adams was actually targeted more, 8-4 officially, though Jones doesn't get credit for that touchdown that got taken away. Next week against Seattle, I'm going to have Adams higher than Jones, but I didn't have Adams in my top 20 receivers last week, and I'm not going to have him there next week. Watch this film, and you'll say Jones is the one who made great catches, and Adams was fine. They're going to steal from each other. And so it's not going to be like this every week for Jones, though we've seen him be a red zone monster in the past. I think they're cannibalizing from each other, and it's going to be a little bit painful for fantasy. And that's to say nothing of Randall Cobb, who still deserves to be highest on this list of Packer receivers. And Cobb scored another red zone touchdown on Sunday after leading the entire NFL with 10 last year. As for Matt Forte, not bad, right? My number 2 flag player of the year had a nice week 1. The Bears gave it to him nonstop. In fact, I almost wanted them to back off a little bit. 29 touches. He's not going to last all season with 29 touches in a game very often, but he was beyond great. He looked fast and smart, powerful, patient with his cuts. Basically everything he's been the past couple of seasons. For 1 week anyway, Forte as an early first-rounder looked like a pretty good call. Alshon Jeffrey's calf, that didn't look like an issue to me. His pitch count, that he was supposedly going to be on, and he looked like he was on for the beginning of the game. He didn't play for the first several snaps for the Bears, but that seemed to go away as the game progressed, as it was close. So no worries on Jeffrey for me. And Jake Cutler ran a freaking read option in the first quarter, and he kept it. And it was like kind of close to Packers' end zone. Man, it was nuts. It's Jay Cutler. He played really well right until the exact moment he didn't. He threw the crushing interception that he always seems to throw. And let's do Chiefs-Texans, also known as Brian Hoyer should stop being given starting NFL jobs. His first pass of the season, he's under pressure, can't step into his throw, but he sees the pressure coming. He shouldn't throw it. He probably knows he shouldn't throw it, and he throws it anyway, and it's picked deep in his own territory. Boom. Houston's in a hole. Zombie Alfred Blue was out there. I refer to him as Zombie Alfred Blue, but that's probably redundant. Alfred Blue is a zombie, or he runs like one. Anyway, he just kind of slow staggers into the line half the time. Jonathan Grimes, who's probably the least talented of the 3 Texans running backs who played, he's the one who actually broke a nice Ham and Egger type run in the second quarter. Chris Polk didn't do anything. Yuck. Hurry back, Arian Foster. DeAndre Hopkins proved he is capable of overcoming this mess for 2 touchdowns, which is good. But he had a bad drop himself in a red zone situation. I don't know how Bill O'Brien didn't replace Brian Hoyer sooner. If I'm coaching Houston, Ryan Mallett, who, I can't tell how good he looked. It was against a Chiefs defense that was basically like, okay, don't score 1 million points and we're good. But I think Mallett almost has to start next week against the Panthers, doesn't he? Travis Kelce, mentioned him at the top. His first touchdown was awesome and repeatable. He skied on a goal line pass, a great catch. The second one, the long one, totally blown coverage, totally uncovered. We're not losing our minds over that one, but good stuff from Kelce. Jamal Charles, rock solid. I continue to like Nile Davis more than most folks do. I thought he was good in a spelling type role. He's always going to play every third series or so. Alex Smith was himself. Jeremy Maclin is the main target out wide, though the Chiefs just really game flow wise didn't have to hit him much with such a big lead. He did have a really nice catch way down the left side of the field that was overturned by replay, which I don't know if I would have overturned it, but they did. The bottom line here in this game, Browns fans who were forced to send me hate mail about how I dissed Brian Hoyer last year, now they get to just nod and smile. Also, zombie Alfred Blue.
Email of the day.
If you are reading this, it is already too late for me. I was walking down Backslider Boulevard when I heard some rustling of papers behind me. Before I could turn around, a trash bag was thrust over my head and I was thrown into a van. I could barely make out what the driver was saying over the loud Apex Manor blaring from the stereo. He kept saying something about barbaric yards per carry stats and deviation from the mean. I was dragged into a dwelling of some sort. It seemed to have a high ceiling, but a low floor. When I looked around, my eyes could not believe what they saw. This crazed man was performing some sort of operation on a man strapped to a table. "Now everyone will see you for the balloon you really are, Trent," he screamed. The man was being flattened and turned into what could only be described as a human balloon. I strained to get my phone to call for help. Once I had it, I first went to Fanly. It's such a great app, sleek, intuitive. Anyway, that's how I'm writing you right now. I write for help. Oh no, he's coming at me with sharp jaguars now. You look a little top-heavy. Let's watch some tape and rank which parts of you really need to survive, he said with a sinister cackle. Tell my family I love them. Signed, LeGarrette Blunt. That email was from Chris Essenberg, and I enjoyed it.
Today's guest.
And today's guests, plural, are the fantasy footballers. I hope you will follow them on Twitter at the FFBallers. You can't fit the fantasy footballers all in one Twitter handle, so you have to be creative. It's Andy, it's Jason, it's Mike, and it's after week 1. How are you guys holding up?
We're still
It's
alive,
fun, man. It's good. We're alive. Our home team won, so we're happy and just trying to absorb all of the fantasy goodness that poured out of the weekend.
Yeah, and so these guys are infamous and famous for having a great podcast as well. I strongly recommend you check out the Fantasy Footballers podcast. You can find it everywhere on iTunes and everywhere else too. Great show, and we're going to tap a little of their knowledge here for the final couple games that we're talking about today. And you mentioned your hometown team, and let's start with the Cardinals-Saints game. I thought the Cardinals came out firing. The Saints are in man. Palmer fires away. That first drive was really great. Ellington had a big run. Michael Floyd makes an appearance and makes a play. John Brown, opens the drive with a catch and closes it with the touchdown. But it maybe never looked so good again the rest of the game, did it?
Yeah, for the most part, you're right. I mean, John Brown, I don't think he saw too many targets the rest of the game and made all of his marks. People were probably extremely excited in the fantasy community for John Brown after that first drive. But, yeah, it slowed down for them. They they made plenty of mistakes as an offense. And I think when Palmer was upright and given time, you saw what he could do. That's one of the reasons we recommended him a lot this year. But, some first game inconsistency for sure.
And I thought it was interesting that it took so long to really get Larry Fitzgerald involved. It seemed like it wasn't until the back half of the game. But then they really went to him in the crunch time, and Fitz showed that he still has it. Maybe he doesn't have the burner speed. And the funny part was his quote. I don't know if you saw it, where because Palmer missed him when he was streaking down the field wide open, and Fitzgerald says, "I'm not 22 years old anymore." So it was really good to see him involved, because I think he can be a really good option for any kind of points per catch leagues, because he got 8 targets. He actually was the leading receiver on the team, surprisingly, after not doing much in the first half.
Yeah, I remember that play. I remember thinking, I think Carson Palmer thinks he's faster than he is.
Yeah, Palmer also was about to get destroyed. So.
Right, yeah. John Brown, despite, your guys are absolutely right, not getting involved too much beyond that first series, still impresses me a lot. There was a first quarter catch after that first drive where it's a deep in and they need a first down, and it's not a finesse catch. He's making a catch in traffic. I still think, boy, the sky's the limit. I'd love to see him come down with that deep one where Damian Swann, the immortal Damian Swann, wrestled it away from him. But I continue to be impressed.
And you could tell the defense was looking for him, because the David Johnson touchdown at the end that sealed it. There was the play design had John Brown motioning in, so the defense completely bit into that, which is what cleared the entire right side for David.
Yeah. So Palmer. My love-hate with Palmer continues. I mean, this dude has a lot of lives. He's got cat numbers of lives here. The Browner should have had that pick on the short slant. It hit him right in the hands. There was a throw in the third quarter to Fells that should have been picked. How'd you like that clock management at the end of the first half?
Oh, my goodness.
Brutal.
Yeah, not good. I mean, so like for fantasy purposes, what we care about is he stays upright and he keeps throwing, and he did. But go ahead.
I was just gonna say Palmer is a gunslinger to a degree, right? I mean, he really had probably 5 or 6 throws that were completions that seemed to be about a fingertip away from defenders, and yet he keeps when he started, he's been a 2-touchdown, 250 kind of guy, and so. You're riding the Jay Cutler-esque train with Palmer, but he does have the weapons, like you said, John Brown. I mean, I like what he does when he's healthy and in the game.
How about those legs? Those 14 yards on the ground. Carson Palmer stumbling and bumbling.
I like the dude who recovered Ellington's fumble. Bro. Not spelled bro, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little about the Saints. Kyrie Robinson played a lot, and that makes you think Spiller's going to play a lot when he's right. But it was really interesting to see Ingram catch it so much. That really carried over from the preseason, didn't it?
Yeah, that was my biggest note on this on that game, was Ingram looking spry in the pass game, and I wanted to know whether or not, whether when CJ comes back, is that going to go away? And I don't think it is, for exactly what you said. The fact that Kyrie was, I think Kyrie was in playing CJ's role. And so, yeah, there were a total of 18 targets to the running back. I think that's going to be one of the ways they make up for Jimmy Graham this year, is a consistent, way to go even to Ingram in the passing game.
And I actually find myself, I'm looking at teams who have CJ Spiller, seeing if they have a weakness because I want him on my team. I think there's going to be plenty of targets for Spiller, and I think he could be a buy low guy for a team that's got the week 1 panic.
Yeah, I love that thought, and I especially love it because I was struck, we heard about the transformation that was supposedly coming in that Saints offense, and it was supposed to be about running, and it feels to me like maybe it was more about sort of the death by 1,000 cuts, passing game, the dink and dunk. I'm sure you guys as Cardinals fans were like,
make an adjustment.
Yeah, can we please make an adjustment, because it just happened again and again. There was the one deeper throw to Brandon Coleman at the end of the first half. Yeah, that Coleman dropped, right?
Yep.
It was right to him. And then I guess that shot to another immortal, Wes Snead,
Oh, my goodness.
who I'd never heard of. That was a laser, but otherwise, I don't think Breeze really ever even showed. I mean, he's got the arm, obviously, but I don't think he ever. It was just a bunch of dinks and dunks, right?
Yeah, 355 yards on 30 completions. Every single blitz play was a dump off. So I think there's an adjustment period that you saw there for the Saints because they look good at times, they look bad at times, and I don't think the confidence in guys like Coleman is there yet to drive it downfield either.
Yeah, that's a really great point. Brandon Cooks showed he was dangerous, didn't really produce. We're not freaked out about him, right?
No, not at all.
Yeah. So, how freaked out are we about Andre Ellington's knee? That's the big story.
Yeah, if you watch him go down, man, he looked like he had just a straight heart attack after getting the ball. He's like, and we're all screaming, oh, that's an ACL. The news is trickling out. It's supposedly just a PCL injury, which is a couple games, but as we know...
Larry Fitzgerald had one of those last year.
Yeah, and Rashad Perryman is dealing with one, and he has not practiced, I think, in a month and a half. So it varies widely, so we're still waiting for the MRI results as of now.
Do you guys think Chris Johnson, even though David Johnson makes the big play and was maybe even a little more on the field early before Chris Johnson came in, Chris Johnson certainly touches it more. Do you think he's the better ad if we're talking waivers?
For this next week, as gross as it sounds, I think that he is going to be the guy who touches the ball more. David Johnson's still the guy that I would rather have on my team.
Longer term, yeah.
Yeah, longer term. As the season goes on, I think he's going to be great. But they announced Chris Johnson as the starter, and you saw in the first game, even you saw them use Chris Johnson and him be effective. So I think he's definitely worth adding this week for teams that have no depth at running back. He's a guy for the short term that I think can be a flex position.
Yeah, I think they're both worth adding, and I think Jason's right. I'm going to add Chris Johnson if I need immediate help, but if I'm kind of stout for the next couple of weeks, I'm going to throw David on my bench.
I think I totally agree with that. Let's move on to a situation that's near and dear to all of the four of our hearts, which is Detroit
I'm getting my notes out.
Joique Bell and Amir Abdullah. We've had some conversations in the past, and I don't know that it worked out for my side all that well. Joique was the starter. I thought he had a couple of nice touches and a great blitz pickup on that first drive. I'm not sure how much of this game you guys got to see because it was on at the same time.
I'm with you, bro. I am happy to give the ribbon away to the Abdullah owners this week.
Yeah.
But honestly, watching the tape, maybe I'm in denial. You tell me. You watched it too. To me, there wasn't anything that really surprised me. Abdullah is the Lightning, and he was the Lightning. And Joique, I was going to say the same thing you said. He had good blitz pickups. It was pretty much alternating snaps for those first few drives. I think Abdullah outsnapped him by 3 in the whole game. Joique was targeted out of the backfield a couple times. I didn't see it. I mean, they didn't get Allen on the goal line, and that's where Joique's going to make his money. And for a first game back, I was okay with what I saw. I mean, if I'm an Abdullah owner, I'm thrilled. I'm excited. Any play can be a home run, but Joique's the Thunder, and they didn't have a lot of Thunder situations in this game, but he was still splitting snaps. So what was your was that your impression, or are you changing your thoughts on Joique, Eddie Lacy, Bell?
Well, I mean, he played fine. He just, I think he maybe had 2 touches that were worth anything. And then, the rest of the time, he got stuffed a couple times. They weren't his fault. Abdullah got stuffed a few times and made mistakes. I mean, if you're going to count who made mistakes between the two, Abdullah doesn't pick up a big first down with the Lions up 1 on a draw where he probably should be able to power it. He fumbles in the fourth quarter but gets it back. But I think we need to hear from the Amir Abdullah wing of this conversation.
Oh man, that was exciting. No? I mean, when you score on your first NFL touch,
carry.
Carry. Your first carry. That's pretty good. But I agree that Joique Bell will have his moments, and we actually had the discussion of who would you start, because Andy was trying to bait me into my Joique Bell answer, which I happily gave because I was not. My love for Abdullah has always been. I think a few weeks in he will start to get a majority of carries, and so I wanted Bell this week because I thought the touchdown chance was was greater for him, and obviously the game flow didn't work out for that. But Abdullah, it's hard to compare it to the Reggie Bush, Joik Bell year, which is kind of that's where people are automatically going to go. But I mean, it's a completely different team and a different coaching staff right now than when Reggie Bush was really effective. And so but you have to be extremely optimistic about Abdullah. Just of any touch can go to the house.
100% agree.
Going forward, the way that this game, a lot of turnovers in the game, a lot of big defensive on both sides of the ball, things that changed the flow of the game. Altogether, there were only 15 total running back carries in the entire game. So I expect that is generally going to go up in the future. And when those numbers go up, it probably will benefit Joik. I didn't expect Joik to come out week one after having missed, camp and preseason and get 20 touches. And so I think going forward, you can play both of them. Abdullah will split with him, but Joik will get the goal line. Abdullah, I think, to get a lot of value from, you're going to need what happened in game one, which was, that 20-yard touchdown. And I think he's got the capability to do it over and over and over again, but do you really want to bank on that versus banking on we're down at the 2-yard line, who's going to get the ball? So both guys actually looked good to me, and I have not been a Joik supporter. I didn't think he'd look as spry when he got some steam behind him. So,
and my question for you, good sir, is what happened to Calvin Johnson?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a great answer because there isn't really a great shutdown corner on that team. Maybe what we should ask is what happened to Matthew Stafford, because it was a terrible game for Matthew Stafford.
Well, that's kind of what I expect out of Matt Stafford.
Yeah.
I think Stafford gets that love so much for many, many moons ago when he threw 40 touchdowns or whatever it was, and people are still buying into that. But I have a lot of Calvin shares because I thought the death of Calvin Johnson was being sung far too early. And so I scooped him up, and it just was a very disappointing week with, what do you have, 2 catches? Almost 40 yards?
Yeah, I mean, there was one on that first drive, and after that he was real silent. And what's even worse than that is just not a lot of targets. Golden Tate was targeted quite a bit more, and we don't have access to all 22 tape yet. I'm going to be really interested to see if we can catch some of what his routes looked like, because he didn't look open to me. And I never want to say Calvin Johnson can't get open, because that would be major news, but maybe there's a chance Calvin Johnson can't go.
Don't say it.
Yeah. So let's talk about the Charger side of things. I thought Melvin Gordon was really good. I thought he was better than Danny Woodhead. He almost scored that sick touchdown.
That was awesome. That was
where his elbows rolled down, right?
Yeah, against that front, he looked great, and he did. He even caught a few passes. I think he had 3 catches out of the backfield. He showed really good balance to me. Yeah, I'm with you. I thought he was pretty impressive. Woodhead got the touchdowns. Melvin lost the fumble, which was a problem for him, obviously, as a rookie. But yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, so we're feeling good about that. I would still have Gordon ranked ahead of Woodhead. It's a platoon, but I think in the long run, Gordon starts to win more of that platoon. Keenan Allen, narrative alert.
My goodness.
He's skinny again.
Did he do something? Did he do something in this game?
Well, he's skinny. Haven't you heard the narrative? He's skinny again, right? That's why. That's why he's good. He was fat last year. Now he's skinny. That's the only explanation for it, right? It's nothing to do with Rasheed Mathis.
Yeah, or 17 targets his direction doesn't hurt either.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Keenan Allen's been a favorite of mine since he came in the league. He was an awesome route runner as a freshman and as a sophomore. I think he might have been hurt. There were talks of a leg injury. He wasn't open as much. Boy, he was open yesterday. Part of that's going to be him. Part of that's going to be Rasheed Mathis. I think Mathis might be on his last legs.
Yeah. So are you, factoring in the defender, are you buying into Allen right now? Are you going to try and get some shares of him, or are you just letting that go?
No, I own a lot of shares of him because I was higher on him than anybody coming into the season. So one of the most asked about questions in my preseason ranks was, what are you doing with Keenan Allen that high? Don't you know what he did last year? It's never going to be this good again, but I'm a believer. Ladarius Green, didn't even think he was going to play. Had a concussion midweek last week. score a touchdown, a sick stiff arm on Stephen Tulloch, took a big hit from Hedebo and kept going. How much are you willing to believe in this weekend of the tight end? How much are you willing to believe in Ladarius Green?
I'm willing to believe that Antonio Gates might need to be stashed.
Yeah, that's exactly how I feel. I think that when Gates gets back, Green is going to go back to being a backup, and so in the entire amount of targets, and you saw Keenan Allen getting a lot of those looks from the slot, almost lining up like Gates when Green wasn't on the field. So I think when Gates gets back, you've got an absolute top tight end, and that's the guy that I would much rather have.
Monday Night Preview.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about the two games tonight. We've got Eagles, Falcons, and we've got 49ers, Vikings. And let's start in Atlanta, where Sam Bradford has the world at his feet. Will he break one of those feet tonight?
Oh, come on now.
He better not. I have him in way too many leagues for that. I started him over Tom Brady this week.
Whoa.
I started him over Carson Palmer this week. So I'm buying into the Bradford while he's healthy producing. So we'll see.
Yeah, the bigger question for me, which we fielded a ton of Ryan Matthews questions, and while I love Matthews for the season, how do you feel about him this game? Do you think he can sneak a touchdown in, or are you just all on DeMarco Murray for this week?
I'm on DeMarco Murray. I think Murray is a perfect fit for what Chip Kelly wants to do. It's a great theoretical match, and the signing was a great theoretical signing. The problem is going to be whether Murray can stay healthy, but he is, we saw it in that game last night. We saw those Cowboy running backs like running into the backs of their linemen and not being patient, especially Darren McFadden, but even a little Joseph Randle not being patient. And what DeMarco Murray is a patient one-cut runner. He will allow blocks to develop, and then boom, he'll go. And he's in that way sort of a poor man's Arian Foster, who I think is the best in the league at that. And that's exactly what Kelly wants on the outside zone blocking. I think DeMarco Murray for as long as he's healthy, is going to be terrific in that offense. And so, predicting one touchdown for Ryan Matthews, who can say? But I'm not imagining we're going to see, who should be the starter? Like, I think if they're both healthy, I think the perfect fit is DeMarco Murray.
So how are you? I don't know if we've talked the snap breakdown with you, but we get asked that a lot. What do we see between Murray, Matthews, and Sproles? What kind of carry percentage do you feel like Murray's going to get?
Yeah, impossible to say really until we see it in action. I think he'll get more than half, and I don't think Sproles gets a carry at all. I think Sproles catches the ball, and that's it. I don't think they need to give him carries anymore, but I just think that when Murray touches it, he'll be significantly more effective. Do you guys have any interest in the Falcons backfield situation for tonight? Do you have own any shares of those guys?
I heard they're not even going to start a running back. It would be Coleman for tonight, I think.
Yeah.
I think it would be Coleman.
But that's kind of based on just what people are saying. Don't you get worried that, like, why are they telling us the truth? I mean,
yeah, I wouldn't want to start either of them by any stretch of the imagination. If I had to pick one out, it would just be the guy who's practiced a little bit more this week. So, these guys, Jason, Mike, they're not big Devontae Freeman guys. I think when he's healthy, they'll use him, but they'll probably use both guys, and I'm not wanting to start either.
And the just seeing from the preseason of the run blocking of the offensive line, it appears to be much the same story as last year. So maybe they can improve on that, but I feel like if that's how they're going to play for the entire year, then the running back who has value in Atlanta is whoever can catch the ball better. And
they just signed Andy Levitre. How can you say they're not going to be awesome?
So I have been the Coleman supporter. It's funny is somehow all my takes seem to have leaned to the rookies this year, and that's not generally how I feel. But I'm not a huge Freeman supporter. But if he has the trust for the pass blocking and catching the ball, then he's going to be the best option. But I don't know. I agree with Andy tonight. It's probably Coleman.
So in the second game, do you guys have a strong lean? I can't imagine you do, so I'm setting you up for like a no, we don't, which is a dumb question. But people ask between Wallace and Charles Johnson. There really isn't a strong take to be had until we see it in action, is there?
I wish I could tell you I had one. I don't at all. I'm in the exact same boat where it's like I could pick a name out of a hat for people, but I have to see it on the field, and I really have no idea.
Yeah, and Kaepernick, I have to start him in a league this week.
No!
Because it's a league, and it's a league I have Ellington in, so clearly I'm not going to do so well in that league. Traded away a lot of draft picks. We've talked about Carlos Hyde, the four of us, before, and I've expressed that I'm a little higher than most, but understand it's not a very good team. Can you envision a circumstance where this very new offensive staff decides to throw caution to the wind and really lets Kaepernick be Kaepernick and really run the option and really run himself with 8 to 10 rushing attempts in this game?
That's I could see this staff having him do option and run the ball a lot, having Kaepernick get out and use his legs. I don't see them throwing caution to the wind and having him, try to throw for 350 yards. But I do think that this is the type of coaching that's going to come in and want that kind of that option read and use his legs to win. So that's my hope, and was my hope when I ranked Cap a little bit higher in the offseason.
Well, look at Newton yesterday. What did he have? 14 rush attempts.
Yeah.
I mean, if Kaepernick gets 10 rushing attempts, he's going to be a valuable fantasy commodity, even if his team crashes and burns. And so that's kind of the enigmatic thing about Kaepernick for anybody who's, choosing a fantasy streamer, right? Because despite him looking like a worse NFL quarterback over the last couple of years, his rushing totals, his passing totals have gone up every year for 4 years. So he's probably hard to start, but if he can run the ball, that's like currency in fantasy.
Agreed. All right, gents. Well, we had to get through a lot. Stupid 2 Monday night games. I don't know who thought that was a good idea.
Yeah, well,
I think it's great.
Yeah, you live in the Pacific time zone. I got to be up at 2 in the morning.
4 o'clock.
Yeah.
Football starts.
Well, thanks very much for doing this, you guys. Andy, Jason, and Mike, again, they are the fantasy footballers. They have a great podcast that I hope everybody who listens to this podcast will give it a shot. I think you'll really enjoy it. They know their stuff. You can follow them on Twitter at the FFBallers. Thanks, guys. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, thank you.
And that's our show. Thank you very much for listening. Tomorrow, I will have a review of the remainder of games that I didn't talk about today. We'll talk waiver wire for Week 2, figure out which free agents you should add, and Will Carroll will be on to talk about all the injuries from Week 1. Hey, thanks very much for listening. I hope you have a fun time watching the games Monday night, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.
The Harris Football Podcast's opening theme is Under the Gun by Apex Manor. The end theme is Tooth and Claw by OU Villain. Subscribe to the Harris Football Podcast on iTunes and never miss an episode.